Hello guys, and welcome back to another cold episode. On today's episode, we are talking about the new ranked season. With the ranks reset, I figured let's talk about one of the top tier strategies. Now, obviously, we should all know what the top tier strategies are. I made a tier list talking about what is the best decks with which to climb. However, there is something that has been on the tier list at the top for quite some time. That is obviously Tearlament. And Tearlament has kind of remained the same, but the thing is, you can play so many different variants of it with so many different additional cards that change the way that the deck is played. That I figured, hey, let's give it another shot, play a few other additional cards, and see how it goes. So this is the deck that I ended up choosing and playing. Notably, it's 42 cards. You should probably play 40. I don't really know what else to cut. I am a wimp and did not decide to fully cut either Ash Blossom or Maxi. Realistically, one of these cards got to go. It's probably Ash. That would just be better. But I didn't do that because I'm a coward. So there's that. So overall, instead, we're playing 42. But let's just quickly go into the card by card and the explanation. Starting off with the Tearlaments, it's pretty simple. We're maxing out on the Tearlaments. The 1 Havness, the 2 Sheeran, 3 Rhino Heart. We're also playing one of the Tear Cache. And then the Perla Rhino, 3 Scream, 1 Heartbeat, a Meta Noise, a Crime, and a Soliak, and that's it for the tier names. Yeah, pretty simple. Playing 1 apiece of all of the spell traps, basically, and then the triple Scream. Notably, I'm not playing Grief, and the main reason for that is because I decided to instead play some other cards, things like the Bridge of Salvation to get us into more of the field spells, including Wraith Soth and the like. So that was kind of the choice there. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Then of course we're playing some of the Cashier stuff. We're playing Fenrir as well as Wraith Soth to get us into the tier cache more consistently, and it's just a good card going second, so very useful. Also, notably, Tearlament is not very good at playing hand traps. Hand traps don't really work very well in Tearlament, right? So for the most part, it is much better to instead play board breakers or just rely on the engine of the deck to kind of push through opponents' boards. Because basically every single one of these cards are very powerful, and the opponent generally has to interact with them in some capacity. So with that in mind, you're better off just kind of like cutting hand traps, which is why we're playing basically none of them. The only non-engine we're playing is the 2 Maxi, the 2 Ash Blossom, 2 Triple Tack, because Triple Tack happens to be very, very useful in this deck. The draws, the take control, the look at the opponent's hand, everything about this is very, very useful. It's it's just an exceptionally good card in this deck in particular. And then of course, 3 Super Poly. Super Poly is very great. We have the ability to Super Poly into a myriad of different things. It allows us to occasionally like dodge like imperms and stuff like that, which is also very nice. So all in all, very useful. So there's that. And that's it's super polymerization, right? You need something to go second. We're gonna play Super Poly. We're a fusion deck. Makes sense. We're a fusion deck. So there's that. As for the rest of the cards, we're playing a whole bunch of one-ofs. As you can see, we are playing the Emerald Tortoise as well as the Rainbow Bridge of Salvation because, yeah, if it gets sent to the graveyard or if we're able to send it off of Foolish Burial Goods, it's very, very useful. We also then, of course, have 1 Snow. We have the Keldo and Mudora. We're also playing Destrudo to get us into some of the fusion, or not fusions, what are these? Synchros. Very, very useful overall. Then, of course, we're playing a small Horus package as well, and the Horus cards pair very favorably with this deck due to the fact that they can make this rank 8 in particular Zombie Vampire, allowing you to mill cards to the graveyard as well as potentially special summon something, which is very, very useful. It allows you to see what your opponent's on as well as being able to put your own cards into the graveyard and utilize them effectively. So we're playing the basically bare minimum, being the 3 Mseti, the 1 Happy, the 1 Kingsark, and the 1 Walls of the Imperial Tomb. Now, I was originally playing 2 Kingsark, which I think is a little bit more consistent. However, it doesn't have as high of highs. Well, kind of. I don't know. They're pretty much the same. Because of Rainbow Bridge of Salvation, I decided to throw in the field spell. So there's that. And then as for the rest of the cards, they're just a whole bunch of power cards. Things like Foolish Burial, Rhoda, Foolish Burial Goods, and then I believe that's it. Oh, and Trivia Karma, obviously, which I didn't mention previously. But yeah, Trivia Karma, pretty self-explanatory. If it's sent to the graveyard, it's very useful. You can search the field spell, you can search Scream, you can search any of the other traps as well. It's just all very useful. And as for the extra deck, it's pretty simple. We are playing just the two, I should say, Super Poly targets, which is the Garura and the Mud Dragon. Basically, every single thing that you could Super Poly is going to be met with these two cards most of the time. There's one other exception, which is the Agnister card, but for the most part, not really all too useful. And there are so many other incredible cards that you could play in Tearlament. So you could play another Super Poly target. I haven't found it necessary. I guess like Dragostapelia technically could also be something you could make, which in theory could be useful because you could make it with Super Poly, or you could make it even with just the Tearlament cards, right? So there's that. Anyway, we're obviously also playing one apiece of the Tearlament fusions, and then we have two Synchro monsters, that being Baron de Flor, which can be made with a Destrudo and a 7, which we have a few of, as well as Psychic End Punisher. Now, Psychic End Punisher is pretty interesting because it's basically a way to OTK. You pay half with Destrudo. Destrudo hits the field. Then you are able to make this with a myriad of different combinations. A 4, a 4, and a 3. Gets you there a 4, a 5 and a 4. No, a 5 and a 3 gets you there as well. No, hold on. Oh, it's a 3, a 5, and a 3 that gets you there as well, which is like the kit colors. You can make it with a 3 and an 8. So there's a lot of ways of like getting this guy onto the field and then making the second again Punisher. You can make it with a 4 and a 7, which is notable. And what this ultimately does is it allows you to go and activate the second again Punisher, paying 1,000, banishing a monster your opponent controls, and then punching in for direct damage to deal lethal. Which is very, very useful, because if your opponent is at 8,000 and you are not, and you just banish the one card, you have a big unaffected guy, so it's not like they're going to be able to do anything about it, and then you just punch them and they die, which is pretty good. Next up, we have the Xyz. We have Time Thief, Redoer, Dugaris. They send for effect, which is very, very useful. So all of their effects are pretty useful. Then, of course, we have the 2 rank 8s. We have the Photon Lord as well as the Zombie Vampire for the Horus stuff. And then we have some Xyz that you can just like slap on top of stuff. That being obviously Zeus. Zeus is great. Even if you mill a whole bunch of your cards, it's great. Or send them to the grave. Then obviously Typhon. And then we have Cross Sheep and SP Little Knight as the rest of our cards. And yeah, that's basically it for the deck. Let's hop into the replays and show you how this deck performed. Alright, so here we are going first with a it's a decent hand. So we're going to start off here with the Walls of the Imperial Tomb. I'm going to activate the effect. I'm going to grab up the Imseti. This is just to search for Ash Blossom. I'm like, okay, they don't have it. They did. They lied to me. I'm like, okay, well, that's okay. Because we still have the triple deck. So I'm going to draw 2, and that's pretty good. Those are 2 pretty good draws, because it allows me to dump the Happy into the grave, which also gets me the necessary materials for the Happy and Imseti. We also hit a Trivia Karma, which is pretty nice, but however, the Trivia Karma was also milled with the Pearl of Rhino, so we just grabbed Scream here. It's not the end of the world. We're going to go for the Scream here, and then we are going to go into the Photon Lord, which will trigger Scream, milling a whole bunch more cards. But that's it. That's all that we can really do. It could be worse, but it could be better. During the draw phase, we're going to fire off the Max C, to which my opponent will go, no, called by. But I did at some point mill a Snow, or send it to the graveyard, so banish everything. Hey, that Max C is no longer in the grave for you to target, so out comes Snow, and no more called by. You are now under Max C. You're going to have to deal with that. But this also triggers the Scream, so we're going to mill a whole bunch of cards. And, well, we hit Crime, which is kind of okay, because Crime's going to add back the Rhino Heart that we banished earlier. So, it's okay. My opponent is going to go for Calarium. For the Rhino Heart. Or, what is this guy's name? Ruim Heart. Sorry, my bad. Then they're going to go for the Triple Tactics Thrust. I'm like, okay, yeah, not really much I can do about that. They grab up the Triple Tactics Talents. And then they realize, oh, I can't activate the Triple Tech because they haven't activated anything during the main phase. So, yeah, I am just going to negate this. This is kind of a pretty obvious negate. Yes, I'm going to negate the Ruim Heart. It's the only thing that they can normal summon and do, so otherwise they're going to have to play into the Maxi. They're going to take here, obviously. It's not like they're going to try and, like, I mean, they could draw on 2, but, like, you take. You take here, you make Zeus, and that's kind of it. I guess I actually think draw 2 may have been better here, and just play into the Maxi and hope that you can push through. Because I had no interactions there. But alas, my opponent goes for the Zeus line. I draw reinforcement off of the 1 Maxi, so that's kind of funny. But Zeus is just like really bad against my deck, so there's that. And remember, I still have the field spell, so out comes Imseti, out comes this guy. We're going to go into Zombie Vamp. My opponent is going to just elect to not activate any of their cards, and I steal the Vsauce Starfrost that I milled from them. Also, Smashers? What's going on here? Anyway, this triggers Scream, this triggers Havness, this triggers the SnowiKs that we milled, and yeah, that's yeah. I could have also normal summoned there the Rhino Heart as well, which would have allowed me to go into Baron, and then, cool, nice Zeus you have there. It'd be a shame if it didn't fucking do anything. Good game. Alright, here we are going first, and again, drew the Imseti. Let's see if we can do anything with it. We're going to start off here with a Wraith Soth, and the reason I do this is because I had a feeling they had a Maxi, but more so because, obviously, right, this baits out, it does 2 things. It baits out an Ash Blossom. Most people are going to Ash this because, like, it's full Kashtira combo, right? Or it's going to bait out a Maxi, right? Which is great, because if it baits out a Maxi, great, we know we're just going to go for the Fenrir here. And if it baits out an Ash Blossom, that's even better, because we have the Imseti. So we're going to go like this. They have the Ash. I'm like, okay, well, they may have drawn it. But we just set the Super Poly, and we just pass. I can't really do much more, so there's that. But Super Poly is, is decently good. Fenrir Super Poly, that is like a decent. But my opponent's going to do some weird things. So, first things first, they go for the Nightmare Throne. They're going to then go for the Yubel, search out Yubel, and then shuffle back Yubel and Spirit of Yubel to go for the Phantom of Yubel. I'm like, okay, makes sense. But that was because they had the Samsara deloaded. So they're going to go for the Samsara, they're going to go for the Spirit of Yubel. I'm like, that's all okay. I'm not going to try and negate here. And the main reason for this is because I'm going to try and wait for the negate to when the Yubel is on field. Which is exactly what happens. Oh my gosh, this is like perfect for me. So they activated the effect here, which summoned out Yubel, which also they did the Nightmare Throne, which searched out the Terror Incarnate, and then the special summoned it. So now I have the Terror Incarnate and the Yubel, which means if Phantom of Yubel activates here, they can't really do anything with it. So I'm like, yeah, I'll activate the Fenris here. They're going to tribute, and I'm like, that's fine. I wanted to get rid of the Nightmare Pain, and I'm like, okay, that's not that big of a deal. But at this point, I am going to go for the Garura. Now, I make a bit of a goof. I should have put this in attack position, and the reason for that is because this card does say any battle damage your opponent takes from battles involving this card is doubled. Not that it deals double battle damage or something, like what have you. Which means putting it in defense makes Nightmare Pain more painful for me, because my opponent can just walk in, and if they have 2 monsters, that is lethal. So very much so not good for me. Even just 1 monster is 4,800 damage. So if had I put it in attack position, I wouldn't have died. Or sorry, it's slightly more because of the field spell that we have. But they decided to not do that. Activate the second Nightmare Pain and just pass with the Phantom of Yubel, because that is a very imbalanced Yu-Gi-Oh card. I go for the SP Little Knight here, and I'm going to go Chainlink 1 Garura, Chainlink 2 SP Little Knight. Now you might be thinking, SP Little Knight target the Phantom of Yubel, to which I don't, because I don't know. I wanted them to negate, but like I also didn't. So I just draw a card. So there's that. And then I go for the Tear Cash, and again, they don't go for the negate. Kind of weird, but okay. So Tear Cash hits the field. Activate the Tear Cash. It resolves. Still very confused. Coolio. I go for the Mudora here because I have to shuffle back the Emerald Tortoise to allow for Bridge of Salvation to actually trigger. So here's another chance for them to negate and basically entirely cut me out of this game. They don't. I get to shuffle back 3 of my cards, and then we go for the Rainbow Bridge of Salvation, and out comes the Turtle, out comes the Pearl Rhino. I'm like, okay, I've gotten this far, maybe. I grab the Rhino Heart, also should have put this in defense position, I'm just bad. They go for the Rhino Heart here, obviously here's where they negate. I'm like, okay, that's fine. Out comes Yubel, and they go for the Terror Incarnate. I'm like, yeah, I guess that makes sense. You know, there's not really a reason to pop the Spirit of Yubel. Just go for the Terror Incarnate. Cool. Here, I had basically one choice, which was I could, right? I could go for something like Cross Sheep, or what have you. You know, link off some cards. I can't really do anything. I could just go Super Poly here. But there's only really one option for the Super Poly, which is Super Poly away these two, because I can't really Super Poly away these two, because they don't actually make Kick Hollows, right? These two, notably, do not summon Kick Hollows, because neither of them are an Aqua. Had I had the Emerald Tortoise in my hand, would have been able, or on the field, would have been able to. But, at the very least, my opponent sees that I fusion summoned away their monster, and they go, I can't beat that. Even though I can't attack because I activated the SP Little Knight. But my opponent doesn't need to know that, and they just concede. So, yeah, Super Poly is pretty good. Alrighty, here we are once again going first. Hip Hip Hooray. And this is a pretty, it's a hand. So we're going to start off here with the Sheeran, and that resolves. Great, fantastic. We're going to mill a whole bunch of cards, and, well, we hit Scream, so we're going to grab SnowiKs and just pass the turn. My opponent didn't do anything. I'm going to fire during the draw phase at the Maxi. I'm like, oh, okay, it resolves. My opponent goes for the draw one, and I'm like, oh, okay, so we're playing Sky Striker, right? In no world is this not Sky Striker. This immediately tells me this is Sky Striker. I genuinely could not tell you what other deck plays Upstart Goblin. Couldn't tell you. I have no idea. Let me know down below if any other deck plays Upstart Goblin. I can't think of one. Anyway, we draw Meta Noise, which is not a combo starter, but it does do what we want it to. So, there's that. To which my opponent will say, cool, here's a Mecha Module, we're going to send to the graveyard a Lightning Storm, and then just Harpy's Feather Duster here. I'm like, oh, well, sure. Anyway, Meta Noise triggers, the SnowiKs triggers. I do this in the wrong order. Instead of doing it the other way, where I get the Surge and the add back to my hand, I do it in the reverse order, which is activate the Meta Noise and then the SnowiKs so that it can be ashed, because I'm stupid. So that's just a mistake. There is no reason for me to have done that way. I have no idea why I did that. I'm just a goofy goober. However, my opponent goes for the Hayate, and I'm like, that's great. I have a Shuffler. I'm not really too worried. Oh, Engage is sent to the graveyard? Cool. During the end of the battle phase, I'm going to just shuffle that card back so that you don't get shit. To the which my opponent will go Normal Summon Ash Blossom, and I will go Snow. If you were wondering what was happening, I activated Snow, which would have put the Ash Blossom face down on their field, which would be a monster in the main monster zone, which would cut off all of the spells. Every single Sky Striker spell just wouldn't be able to be activated. And I have Rhinoheart for follow-up, so hey, that's a good game. Okay, here we are once again going first. This one is more a lesson. I have a lesson for you, okay? If you've stuck around till this point in the video, tell me down below, and just comment Fire King. Just comment Fire King, and I will know that you understood what it is that I'm trying to say here. So this is pretty simple. We got the Horus stuff, so we go into the Zombie Vampire. We go for the Zombie Vampire, to which my opponent will impermanently. Okay, can't really do anything about that, but that's fine because we can just go Scream and then Normal Summon Happiness, and hopefully that does something. We hit a Tier Cash. We also hit the Scream, so we're gonna grab Meta Noise, which is okay. And then my opponent will go, hey, I have Fire King Avatar Kirin. I'm gonna activate the effect of the Kirin, and I'm going to put it on the field. Okay? I'm going to pop the Volcanics, which would, it also gets me another guy, and then I can make a rank 8, and like that does stuff. Here's the thing. Don't do this. Keep Kirin in your hand for your turn. Kirin is way more valuable on your turn than it is on your opponent's. Unless you actually have something in your hand to utilize when the Kirin pops it, or like pops a card to special summon itself. Unless you have something, don't do this. Don't do this. There is no reason to do this. Because here's the thing. Had they kept this card in their hand, on the following turn, they could go, I'm going to normal summon Volcanics. I'm going to activate the effect. And I'm like, cool, I'm going to try and Book of Moon that. Or do something, you know? Maybe I don't Book of Moon that, because that doesn't really do anything. But at the very least, cool. Volcanics resolves. You pop the Kieran, or you pop another card, and then you're off to the races, right? You can actually do stuff. And now I have to Book of Moon something much less useful, right? But if I do attempt to Book of Moon it, cool. Dodged. Kieran now dodges it. Just pops the card. It's now in the grave. It can't. I don't get a send, right? So now that's like way better for you. Great. So yeah, maybe just do that. I get that, like, oh, but that triggers Scream, and like, if I do this now, like, Meta Noise isn't live, and it's like, yeah, but it's like, it could be. Like, as soon as the turn passes, it goes to me. The other reason to not do this, it's still the main phase. So when I found that summons a guy, I'm like, that's great. Give me. I'm gonna make SP Little Knight and banish your shit. Now your field is gone. You got nothing, and yeah, that really accomplished something. My opponent just concedes because they should. That was a silly play. Don't do that. Just don't. I get that it's so tempting. It's bad. Just don't do it. It so rarely does anything. If they had a Garunix there, if they had a high avatar Garunix, sure, pop off. That gets so much advantage, right? If they had a Ponix that would place itself, maybe you could say, yeah, go off. But like, for the most part, just don't do that. It's just silly. All right, and real quick, we're back with the deck. Honestly, Tearlament has shocked me with how often it just continually is able to be good. It's consistently good. Where would I put this in, like, rankings? Probably above, like, Branded, somewhere around there. I think Branded has the ability to kind of pop off and do more, but Tearlament does it more consistently. It doesn't die to one or two hand traps, and honestly, it plays better going second as well. Then I think even Branded does, which is kind of saying something. But like, Branded does kind of have a hard time chewing through boards. Sometimes it doesn't. But I mean, that's the same thing with Tearlament. But yeah, Tearlament's just kind of crazy. You know, sometimes you just hit. It's that simple. And yeah, it's such a weird deck to play and to build in its current state, but it is still very strong, and I like it. It's fun. It's still fun to play. I think it's also in a really good spot, like in the meta, where it's not like too overbearing, but you can still very easily play it and still have fun with it. I think it is like perfect right now. I wouldn't change a thing. It's great. Even though there are so many just random jank one-ofs, I think it's great. I think it's doing real good. I think it's super fun. And yeah, I really enjoy it. So that's going to be it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you guys did enjoy it. If you did, like it very much, so appreciate it. And remember to always stay frosty. Bye-bye. Shout out to the Frost Guard, my members. Thank you guys so much for the support, and I hope you enjoy the content.